Hallo. Hoe gaan dit?
Gaan goed.
Great. Hello, Charlene. Hello, everybody. Hello. Oh, my word. I am not getting the right buttons. Add that. There we go. Yay. Hello, everybody. Here we are. I'm so excited to have Charlene with us today. Hi, Charlene.
Hi there.
You're going to get to Charlene now. I think the first few things I just kind of want to get out there is, yeah, this is going to be a great chat. I'm so excited. Anyway, so last week, Yami shared, not last week, the week before, Yami shared this amazing testimony with us, and she spoke about emotions and finance and everything. And I got a lot of people coming back to me and just said, wow, this was amazing. This was really great. And I want to invite you, if you were one of those people who said, this is great, I want to know more, please, 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 share some of that on the Facebook page. Let's continue the conversation and let's talk about, you know, what's been shared here. It is really just amazing to hear how, and I think for the people who are speaking as well, it's great for them to hear that, hey, my story is actually making an impact. So I really invite you, please share on our Facebook page. The second thing I kind of just want to put out there is I want to ask that if you want to receive email notifications, please register. I will post the link a little bit later just again, but if you scroll down on our page, there is a place where you can register. So then you'll also receive email notifications for whatever is happening right here. And the last thing from my side, if you want to be here and you have an incredible story to tell, or you feel you have a voice about finance, or you feel you understand something about God's provision, please reach out to me. You can do it on Facebook, you can send me a WhatsApp, whichever way. These days it's not hard to communicate, but let me know. I would love to talk to everybody who has a story to tell about money. So let's talk about money. So, okay, Charlene, yeah, me and Charlene, we are working and serving together within the wildlife groups. Yeah, I'm not going to go too much into that right now, but that is where we spend a lot of our time, and we are part of the same community. And although Charlene and myself don't know each other very well, I think we've heard a lot about each other. And people speak, you know, and yeah, people speak very highly of you, Charlene. So you are in Durban, you're a mother of beautiful young Mackenzie. You're going to tell us more about that. Yeah, so tell me, who is Charlene? What do you do in Durban? And yeah, give me a little bit of background on who am I talking to today?
Okay, do you want me to start on the day I was born or more recent?
No, just the tip of the iceberg.
Okay, I work in a Manzamtoti. I stay in a Manzamtoti as well. I work for a private security company. I'm an admin manager. Basically everything from the Teagle to the reception to admin, HR, you name it. I do absolutely everything in the office at this stage. Widow for 10 years. And I've got an 11-year-old daughter turning 30 in June. Very wise, very witty. We do absolutely everything together. We've been, I mean, she was 2 years old when her dad passed away. So we're like best friends. She doesn't even want to go on school camp without me. So it's like cutting the strings there. Yeah, and I'm also an artist and a blogger. Very busy.
Yeah, see that, there, you said it, blogger. Tell me about.
Well, my whole life I did a bit of art, you know, dabbled a bit of art. So my great-grandfather, he's an artist, a self-taught artist. And I just went through the generations that we all were a bit of artistic people. I studied art, majored in ceramics, so I'm a good potter. I don't get to do pottery much at this stage because I live in an apartment and I can't have a kiln and a potter's wheel in my front lounge. So I paint at this stage. Yeah, that's me. So I was always thinking, that was always like a mindset that I have. That's what I'm good at. I can draw a good picture. I can paint a pretty picture. my blogging started a year ago. My sister started like, you've got funny stories to tell. You need to write it down. You need to share more. And I'm like, yeah, I get ya. And then one day she phoned me and said, well, have you written some stories? Your blog's finished. I'm like, oh, okay. It's like, okay, where do we move from here? And I dabbled a bit, looked at my screen for a couple of weeks, wondered, the pressure was on, and I just had it as like a quiet fit, like I don't know where to move from here, because this is not me. I don't write stories. And one day my first blog was about a toffee that I ate at work, and the toffee is extremely hard and it got stuck in my teeth and I couldn't open my jaw. And so I was sitting like this the whole time trying to get the toffee out of my teeth. So I told my sister what happened, and she's like, Charlene, this is what you should write about. You're funny and you don't realize how funny you are. So that's where it started. A year later, wow, co-creating in blogging and in my words and stuff. So it's a whole different avenue for me to move into. Juggled my safety box, if I can say it like that.
As a writer myself, I know that staring at the white screen for days very well. But I also know the joy of when the floodgates open, how amazing it is to finally get something that is at least readable. So yeah, the joys of creating.
When I start writing, it takes me like 10 minutes and I'm done with a blog. I mean, like, I can just get into it, and Tanya's like, yeah, that's a good blog. Okay, post, share, go on.
Yeah, great. Charlene, I want to get into the stuff why I invited you here. You live in Durban, in KwaZulu-Natal, and I think for South Africans, we know that Durban has gone through a bunch of stuff in the past, well, 2-3 years if you include COVID. But you have incredible stories of just God's provision, especially in the past, let's say, year, on how God used you to provide within your close community. And, if we talk outside COVID and everything that happened, Durban was in the news last year around this time, a little bit later than this year, last year, about the looting that started because of the political situation. Would you mind maybe give us just a little bit of background on what was happening in Durban? Why was it happening? And because I think there's people on here, who might be listening, have no idea what happened and why. So maybe if you wouldn't mind, give us a little bit of an idea of what Durban looked like a year ago.
Sure. Well, it happened on a Sunday, or started happening on a Sunday. It was very politically motivated. I'm not going to go too much in there. That night when we went to sleep, you could hear the gunshots in the background, and you could smell things burning, and it was very quiet, and you can just see cars driving up and down at night and through the night, and with a matter of urgency to get to points to try and protect areas, especially the guys in the community. A lot of men got up and took up arms and protected the community. So by Monday morning, my boss just said to me, stay at home, don't go out. And the messages all around, just like, don't leave your house. It's too dangerous. So what happened was communities all over Durban just decided to loot every business that was there for them. They would break open, steal whatever they could take, TVs, washing machines, fridges. And if that was done, they started moving towards the food items, and they had buckies stop at the shops, and they would just load up and take for, what was free for all. And when the shop was empty, they would burn it down. That there was absolutely no way of just filling up a shop again. It was total destruction. You would have to build up from the ground again. And they went into major distribution centers, so warehouses in the Durban industrial areas. That was our central point of provision for food that had to be spread out to the area. And not just that, they started targeting malls, clothing shops. They were burning down malls. So no, people didn't have a place to go when, everybody, when you go sleep, you think, oh, well, it's going to be sorted out tomorrow morning. We can get up and go to a shop and buy what we need again. So by the Monday morning, people just were, the realization hit that we won't be able to get to a shop. How's the shops that's been burned down? We're going to be built up in time for us to get food again. So there's a real fear for people around that, where's our next meal going to come from? And some already had empty fridges, and over social media, people were starting like, you know what, we don't have food in the house. We don't have milk for the babies or nappies for the babies and things like that. So because I work in this security industry, my boss, I must say, let me say this before, there's 3 malls or shopping centers, major shopping centers in Toti. One being a big mall and 2 smaller shopping centers. And one of the shopping centers we have guards there. And there's a Pick and Pay as a shopping center for like Walmart, or where you go buy your food, for those that doesn't stay in South Africa. The Tuesday morning, my boss phones me, says to me, do you need things in the house? I'm like, not really, I'm okay, I can manage with what I have. He says to me, well, if you can get to the shop, but come to the back where they do their receiving. Come to the back, there are going to be armed guards and armed civilians. Just tell them who you are and that I sent you. He says, but hurry. And I got in my car without thinking. I drove through barricades. It looked like a war zone, because what they did was to block every entry point to the malls and shopping centers. They blocked off with barbed wire and wood and rocks and things to prevent people from getting in there, to protect the shopping centers, because we were basically in a very big area, the only town that still had shopping centers with food that wasn't looted. So that was the aim, is to protect the shopping malls. And I drove through barricades like that was me. Nobody stopped me. Nobody's like, where are you going? You're going a bit fast, because it's about a 10-minute drive to where I had to be. Got in the back and I had 500 Rand with me. And they said, no cash, only card transactions. It's too dangerous to pay with cash. So I phoned my mom, like, whatever cash you have or money you have in your account, transfer to mine immediately, because I can buy food now, but I can only use a card transaction. So she transferred 2,000 Rand into my account. That's all she had with her. And my boss said to me, you've got 15 minutes to load up and get out of here and get home. So with the looting and everybody having food and stuff in their possession, the general thing at the barricades were that if you were found with food and stuff in your car, that was going to be confiscated. Because obviously no shoppers are open, and you're not supposed to be able to be shopping at this stage. So I just walked in there and I'm like,
so the police would have, if they stopped you with food, they would think you looted.
They would have confiscated the food. So when I got in the shop, I just started phoning friends. I'm like, what do you need? I'm in a shop. Don't ask questions. I'm limited time. And they just like bread, milk, potatoes, that type of thing. And I just loaded. So I stayed away from the meat, because it's already been a couple of days. So I didn't want to take a chance with the meat section. So I just grabbed vegetables and eggs and flour and yeast to bake bread. And I grabbed the last loaves of bread that was on the shelves, and long knife milk and packets of soup, things that you can make more food out of and share, can stretch a bit, a packet of soup or something like that. And I just like, oh Lord, I'm not adding up. Just let this be enough, please, what I'm loading up. And as I was paying, I'm like, oh shucks, maybe I should get some eggs. So I would run back and grab the last eggs. And, it was actually very funny. This guy's like, where's she now? Then I'm gone and just bringing more food for it, cereal for the kids and things like that. And dog food. People were asking me for food for their pets. So loaded up, and it was about 2,300 Rand. I'm like, oh man, I don't have enough. And then Eve calculated the final calculation, and I got that 300 Rand discount. It was all of a sudden, it's like, oh, there's a discount. Thank you. Let's load it up. And then I've got a very small car, and I couldn't get everything in the boot, because now I'm trying to hide the food. and I couldn't get everything in the boot. So my back seat was loaded with packets. And I was like, oh no, I can't, please don't let me be seen. So as I left the shopping mall, I started phoning friends again. I'm like, okay, I'm on my way. I'll be with you. Now I'm trying to see where they live so that I can just do one line travel. And I would stop at the one gate, and then she would take a packet of carrots and a bread of milk and hand me tomatoes and onions. Like, this is all I have. But, you know, so we be swapping things like that. Then I get to the next house. Oh, I need tomato and onions. Okay, here's a tomato and onions. Here's some flour or whatever, so you can bake a bread. So I did about, that day, I gave about 8 families that I could provide for food and stuff. So I brought some home, and I gave my neighbor some food, and I gave him some eggs, and he's like, I don't know how to cook an egg. He doesn't have a stove, he doesn't have a pot, he's a single man. So I'm like, okay, you take a mug, you put water in, you break your egg in the water, pop in the microwave, you've got a poached egg. And the next morning he's like, wow, that's the best eggs I ever had, you know, type of thing. So it was, you know, when you drive through town like that and you have to rush through things, you know, the realization hit to me, this is what war looks like. This is what a town looks like when it's at war. I didn't sleep much for those couple of days that the looting was happening and stuff, until it was safe to actually say, okay, listen, the people have calmed down, they're going to stop, they're staying at home now so that we can return to some form of normal life. So that was me for the first day.
How long did the looting go on for?
I can say for about good solid week, until there was just nothing more to take and to burn down. They tried several times to get to our town. We would get, there was an app that everybody could download, like a walkie-talkie type of app. Then we could hear the people saying that they are on the railway tracks, because there's a railway track next to the beach where we stay. Then they would get on the railway track and try and walk in and get in on the back sides of our town to get to the malls at night. So there were men driving around in the back of buckies armed with these huge, massive weapons and whatever they could find, young and old, and sometimes even the women. Like, I can, you know, my husband is sleeping, I'm standing guard for tonight. So they, it was a question of 24/7 for that time, that men and women were standing guard at their barricades. And, you know, those that stayed at home would take out soup and sandwiches to keep them through the night, you know, because it's winter that time. So it was really, it was on the one side good to see a community draw like this together.
Yeah, we're gonna come to the community bit in a bit. I think I wanna step into that. Yeah, there's a few more stories I think that I would like for you to tell, and the one specifically is about the uncle with the bread. Tell us about the uncle and the bread and the police woman.
There was a Wednesday morning, I think a Wednesday morning, that I drove to work very quietly, you know, like drove, you know, I did it at a slow pace because you don't know who's going to jump out of the bush against you or something. And as I turned into my parking lot at my office, there was a delivery truck that delivers bread in the parking lot. And a whole lot of people outside buying bread directly from the truck. So I stopped and asked them, how much is a loaf of bread? And it was basically double than what a normal loaf would be. So they were exploiting the people directly from, you know, I can't say that they were just pocketing the other half, but yeah, 30 Rand a loaf is double what, you know, a normal loaf is. And people were desperate because they didn't have food. And so they were paying the 30 Rand for a loaf of bread. So I walked into the office. I'm like, okay, I don't need bread right now. Walked into my office, and as I got into the office, my boss called me and said to me, is the truck still there? Because his security knows everything, I suppose. So he calls me and says to me, is the truck still there? And I'm like, yeah, it is. He says, do you have money with you? I said, yeah, I have some money with me. He says, well, please go and buy some bread so I can make sandwiches for the staff working. So I walk off, and as I walk back to the truck, this old little man comes walking past, but he's like hugging himself. He looks like really sad. And I'm like, oh, shucks, is the bread finished? And he just says to me, I don't have 30 Rand. I'm like, okay, well, come, I'm going to buy bread. I'll just buy you one as well. I've got, he says like, he'll pay you back. I was like, don't worry about it. We'll talk about it later. And as I got to the truck, the police stopped and they pushed through everybody. And they're like, we're taking the bread for our staff. Now I'm standing behind the lady. She's a captain in the police. And I'm standing behind her and I'm like, well, this uncle wants 6 loaves of bread. And he's like, bah, bah. You know, he doesn't really wanted 6 loaves, but I'm just like, shh, don't say anything right now. And she turned around at me and she had this like, you're right, look on her face. And I thought, and I put my hand on her shoulder and I said, Shame, do you want a donation for the bread? And she just gave a grin and she's, it's okay, give her a 6 loaves of bread. So I paid for the 6 loaves of bread and I turned around, I gave the old man some bread and he walked back and he was so grateful. He was carrying the bread like a baby. It was like a piece of gold. And he's like, I'll pay you back. I'll pay you back. Where do you live? And I'm like, don't worry about it. It's, you know, I didn't ask you for the money back. And I walked into the office. And as I walked in the office, my friend phones me. She says, I really need bread. I'm like, ooh, you know, okay, my boss needs bread for the staff. I'm like, okay. And I'm busy talking to her. And my boss walks in with 6 loaves of bread. I'm like, where do you get the bread? He says, no, he stopped the captain and said, like, come on, man, my staff needs bread. And he didn't know I bought bread already. So he had 6 loaves and I had 4 loaves. I'm like, okay, well, I said, to him, okay, I'll bring you 4 loaves of bread. The boss already got his 6 loaves.
Wow. So the food really just multiplied.
Oh, definitely.
Where there was a need. Where there was a need.
And if I couldn't buy bread, I would bake bread. So I was busy baking bread. There were people phoning me up. I'm like, I hear you bake bread. I'll swap you a packet of meat if you bring me a loaf of bread. So, you know, a loaf of bread for a kilo of meat that I could make a stew out of or a soup out of, and I could share that again, you know. So it was just the way God, you know, multiplied. I mean, from a loaf of bread to a stew that I could give, you know, 5-6 people that I could feed again from that. So that was really a wow factor for me. That I think that was the biggest one. Okay,
but how many bread did you bake? How many? How much?
I baked about 3 or 4 loaves a day because, you know, trying to knead the bread, let it rise, put it in the oven. My oven's not that big. So I did about 3 to 4 loaves a day.
Okay, and then you just swap them out within your community for whatever.
Yeah, you know, I found myself not asking how are you, is like, do you need bread? I'm busy baking, I'll bring you one.
Oh, wow. No, Charlene, I think there's a few things that stand out for me in the story, or in your stories. And I think the first thing is God really gave you favor within the sphere that you are living and working. You know, if you weren't working in security, you wouldn't have had that favor. You wouldn't have had that open door to a shop to give food. And I think that for me is, how many times do we miss, or how many times do we want to be in a different place, but we don't realize and understand the favor that is upon our lives for situations to come. I think that's one thing that's really just, wow, yeah, Lord, keep me grateful for where I am.
Because I could have very easily said no that day that my boss called me and not go. You know, I have a daughter that I need to look after. I could have said, you know, for my safety, oh, sorry, hold on, someone's at my door. So I can very easily tell him, you know, sorry, I can't go. And I didn't think when I did that. I just got in the car because I knew that was something that I, you know, needed to do. There were people out there that didn't have the favor to get in a shop.
Did you understand that when you got in the car? Did you realize that this is the opportunity that you can't miss?
It actually hit me a couple of days later, because I got a chance again to get in a shop. When the shop started opening up, they opened up with a very big restriction. You're only allowed 1 item at a time. You're not allowed to bulk buy. The queues were miles and miles away. Oh, sorry, my mom's just getting that. I'm sorry, people. That's the thing about staying in it's about things staying in a flat. So Oh gosh. I got in the shopping center and I drove straight in where the barricades were again. And my boss opened the door and he said to me, just go through, grab your trolley. And I didn't have to stand in a queue. And I walked in and I bought. And then now I'm lying, buying 6-7 loaves of bread. And the people are looking at me like, you're not allowed to buy that. And I would get on the phone like, Vanessa, I'm on the phone. I'm in the shops. Do you need bread for your mom and dad and stuff like that? It's like, oh, you're buying for someone else? I'm like, yeah, I'm buying for someone else as well, So I had to twist the truth in the sense there. But you know what? I had to do what worked for me at this stage.
Yeah. I think the second thing for me that really is really evident about your stories is your heart for community. It sounds like every time you took a risk, it was for somebody else than yourself. It was I was kind of stepping out there. And tell me about your community. Why is community so important for you? What about other people is driving you to drive through the barricades?
I just don't like seeing people suffer. I've been there. I've been there where there wasn't food to cook for the night and you didn't have money to pay for your bills the following morning, that type of thing. So I've been there and I hate to see people struggling. I don't like it at all. So if I can give you a slice of bread or make you a sandwich or share my dinner, that's the first thing that I will do. It's just who I am, I think. And I try and instill that in my daughter as well, because, children these days grow up very differently than what we grew up with. An whole different mindset. It's just, me, what I can get out of the deal and stuff like that. So I have to really show and live by example for my daughter that this is what God has called us to do, is to live abundantly in the sense of I'm able to share. I can't put a financial figure on what I share. I can't put, let me say it like this. I cannot tell you a day that because there's months that I haven't bought groceries and my fridges are always full. I can't explain it. I would physically count the packets of meat and vegetables I have in my fridge and okay, we've got food for 6 days. And I will make a pot of soup and I'll share it with someone, and that packet of meat or whatever that I have for 6 days would last me to the end of the month. I can't give a reason how that happens. It just does. It just does.
I love God's economy. I love how he just figure things out in a different way. Oh, I love it. Yeah. So tell us about Mackenzie. You said she's turning 30 soon.
She sometimes she's at that preteen stage. She knows what she wants and she will get it. She will make sure that she gets it. She's very headstrong and determined, but she's also got a huge dry sense of humor. Sometimes she just leaves me speechless. I just look at her and she starts laughing, and she knows that she sometimes just pushes the button and stuff like that. But yeah, she's my life. She's a spitting image of me, I'm told. I don't see it. I just see her.
Great. So I think my next question is because I think, yeah, the next question is, if you said earlier that they grow up so much different than what we did. Yeah, I can just go into my own stories on how I was brought up and things I wish I knew, ways I wish I knew how to think differently about money. That my parents would have taught me, and well, not just money, but money and religion, and money and God, and I think I have made the connection between money and God way too late in my life. So what are some of the things, if you can just think about something real quick, what are some of the things that you are instilling in your daughter at this young age that is different from how we grew up? What are some of the things that you are trying to teach her that is different from, when we grew up?
Wow. Gosh, that's actually a difficult question because I just do it manually. I don't think about it really. But if I can use an example is, I'm praying for a new car at this stage. Now to teach her to have the faith that I wasn't raised up to have. It was like have faith when I was raised up. It's like have faith, but the depthness of saying, how is your faith? What is faith? I have to teach in for her. I have to go into in a deeper way of explaining to her. So having the knowledge and the words to describe to her and live by that example. Being a widow, it's not easy. You know, so the electricity bill stays the same. The petrol account stays the same. You know, the food bill stays the same as what you had with, you know, 2 household income. So people think that I'm rich because I'm a widow, that I've inherited rich. And I have to show her how to be a good steward of money, because she thinks that it's very easy when mom swipes a card, that, you know, that's like a never ending pit of money. So I was praying for a car, or am praying for a car. I'm believing for a new car. We're just growing out the seams at the moment for this one. And having to show her how God speaks to us, what his plans are. So she came in the one day, and I drive my friend's daughter home as well. And her name is Lilo. So Lilo gets in the car and she says to me, Mackenzie, you need to tell your mom what happened in class today. And mom, Mackenzie's like, oh yeah, Mr. James used me as a example. I'm like, okay, what's the example? He says to the class, what about if Mackenzie gets a free car? I'm like, wow, I was actually praying for a free car. Nobody knew that I was praying for a free car because I didn't want to pay for it. It's expensive. So I'm like, Lord, you just need to make this way that it's free. And I'm like, oh, well, that's cool. And all the kids got in the car and they were like so excited. Yeah, we're going to get a free car. And that just built up their hope and their faith to see, you know, that I could point it out to them like, listen, you know what? I've actually been praying for a free car. And here you come, and it's like a clue, you know, use it like as a clue. And I said, oh, well, let's talk about numbers. I'm like, numbers? And I'm like, give a little bit of background about Hebrew numbers and the meaning of numbers. And we drove home and I'm like, okay, let's look for numbers. And the kids started like, oh, this house number makes 8. Oh, this number makes 8. Oh, look at that number plate makes 8. And we just drove all the way home and the number 8 just popped up. So again, it wasn't a time like that I could sow in wisdom for her, you know, for her friends as well, how God speaks to us. And it happened for the 3 days after that every time something in class happened, that it was highlighted that someone was getting a car and it's going to be a new car and it's a free car. And it got the kids so excited. So I can just zone in on things like that and keep the memory alive of how that instant feel of that excitement that God is promising something. And I get use situations like that to, you know, when, you know, raising her, the days that she comes, can I have this toy? I'm like, you know what, now is not the time for that toy. Let's pray and have faith for that toy. And then she can read back into that instance where we were talking about the car and having the faith for that car. She can use it in for that toy or for whatever she wants to.
Oh, you're going to come back with a testimony of that car.
I've already entered a competition for the car. Like, I'm just like, Lord, let's win the end date of this competition.
Yeah. It's interesting. It feels like cars at the moment is a kind of a, well, cars and homes is that there's a lot of people out there trusting God for a new car and trusting God for houses. And so I think there's a big, there's a big, I don't know what, but there's something there. So I'm trusting with everybody for that car and for that home and for that everything.
I'm trusting along them.
Yeah, and I wanna get back to just I think before we say goodbye, I want to get back to Durban and the community that you are living in and that you are serving at the moment. So we spoke about the looting from a while back, and quite recently, what, a week or two ago, Durban had another hit.
Yeah,
and,
floods.
And sorry that I'm laughing about it, but it's really just like, wow, it feels like this family that just continue to have all the bad luck. You know, so Durban was really struck by tremendous storms and rain about 2 weeks ago.
Yeah,
And
it's about 2 weeks.
a lot of people, I think the last death figure I heard was 440 people died in Durban during the floods.
Yeah.
That is not even talking about all the houses and all the businesses and everything. So tell us a little bit about what is happening in Durban at the moment. What is the community and what is the moral feel with Durban at the moment?
I think that it started with COVID, then it's the looting, then it's the floods. I mean, people lost homes, family members that were swept away in mudslides. The morale is very low. I know of friends that, you know, in their work situation, that the boss just phones and says, well, the insurance is going to pay out. I'm going to retrench the company, staff members. I'm not opening up the business again, because to try and get up after the third blow is just too much. The people just don't have it in them. Suicide, we hear of suicides, people that, you know, are being kicked out of their houses because they can't afford, they've lost their jobs, they can't afford to, you know, pay for rent anymore. You know, they at their last line. That's it's a very desperate situation. And now for the fact that things like water is a problem. There's no water. Some communities haven't had water since the flood started. Electricity is a problem. Now people have to take out an extra expense to go and buy water where they normally wouldn't have had to buy water, extra water. We can't drink the water out of the taps. It's just because of the way the flooding happened with sewage lines that contaminated the drinking water and stuff. And the need is so much for the, you know, the little bit of reservoir that's still working, that they can't get to, you know, sorting out the, you know, making it hygienic for someone to drink. So it's a very difficult situation. It's a very, if I can call it, sludgy situation. People are in mud and they're trying to move forward, but it's as if they're just being dragged down and dragged back. And I feel that hope sometimes have just died. If you can look at people, I can just see that the dismay is just too much for them. They just can't handle. They don't know where to go and turn and stuff like that. And there's so many people, non-profit organizations that's trying to gather food and clothes and belongings for people again, to build them up. But, you know, since COVID, you know, businesses closing down, people losing jobs, it's difficult to sow into that. People don't have money to sow into, you know, non-profit organizations. They try, but there's a lot of people that just don't have the means to sow into other people's lives to get them up and running again.
Sure. Okay. And the community that you've been part of for the past year, is there any specific need at the moment? Is there anything specifically that you feel, hey, there's a family with a baby that doesn't have food? Or is there something like that that you can think of that really needs immediate help or assistance?
There are some that I know of that needs just basic necessities, that, you know, everything has been washed away, that they don't have food or clothes or school uniform for their children. School books have been washed away, stuff like that. So there are people that I know of that is trying to just build their lives up again. And just the general thing of having to buy, you know, food and drinking water, and, you know, just to try and make, you know, it bearable. So yeah, I know of a lot of people that just struggling at this stage.
Are you still baking bread?
I was actually blessed with a bread maker now, so I can bake a bread in 3 hours. I don't need to do the kneading because, you know, with the looting, this arm was feeling a bit more muscly, if I can call it like that. Manual bread making is not for sissies.
Yeah, and you said before, hey, because it was winter, the bread didn't want to rise, so you actually had to. It was people got.
Yeah, I used my heater. Yeah, I had had to strategically pack everything with books and maneuver the heat in such a way so I can get to the bread dough and to rise the bread and make a plan.
Oh my word. Well, I think I'm really challenged today, Charlene, by our conversation. You know, it's so much different from some of my previous conversations. But I think what is really challenging me is your heart for community. Really, I am so blessed and so challenged to think differently about the people around me. You know, and how important community is. You know, yeah, I said to you earlier, we are currently doing a different talk also about money and cryptocurrency and how that is based on the Acts Church, the ancient Acts Church, and how the church was really community based. And I am really, and I'm learning to live from a place where I am not the center. And I think what I see in you is that you are living from a place where you are not the center. You know, where I am going into the shop, I'm putting my life in danger, but let's make sure that while I'm doing this, the people around me at least can benefit from this. You know, so that really, it really blesses me so much. And I think we've been training and we've been taught about being God on earth and being God's vessel on earth and how he uses us. And that's what I see when I look at you, is how God can just flow through you, and how you are just this open vessel to your community, you know. And what for me is the interesting thing is I am somebody who gives money easily. You know, I would much rather give money than I would bake a bread. Really, it is just the way that I am kind of put together. But what is coming out of this conversation is God needs us sometimes to just bake a bread, you know, and just be the hands and the feet. So thank you so much just for being you and stretching my mind today to think in a different way of God's provision. And how can I be God in a situation that doesn't involve necessarily money? How can I serve my community in that? And what does his provision look like? You know, a pot of soup. I'm like, yeah, I don't know. But that's probably why they don't use me that seriously. Make the soup. But that is, you know, yeah, thank you. Thank you for just sharing your stories with us today. And thank you for serving your community. And I really want to just bless you in the time and in the place where you are to continue to do what you do. But I also want to ask that, please, would you make your banking details available to us on the Facebook page and also your blog? Don't forget about that blog. Listen, if you haven't seen Charlene's blog, you need to go read her blog. She's a fantastic writer. She has an amazing, joyful way to tell a story. It is lovely. Charlene, I loved it. I loved reading your blog.
Thank you.
It is really fun. So please make your banking details and also PayPal available to us. If you feel you want to sow a 50 Rand or a $10 towards Charlene and the community that she's supporting, please do that. Charlene, I loved talking to you. I would love to have you back at some point because I know there's a lot of depth and a lot of joy. I know that you have an understanding about your own worth, you know, and how that translates to money. So I would love to talk to you about that at some point. I think that's a totally different conversation, but I would love to have you back for that. Yeah, but thank you for today. Is there anything else you want to share with us? Another nice, joyful story?
I can share my bread recipe.
Yes, please. Yes, please. That would be great. We have a gas oven. Will it work in the gas oven?
Yes, it will. Even on an open fire.
Fantastic. Yes, please share your bread recipe with us.
I'll do that.
Oh, yes, you, Charlene. Thank you so much. It was such a pleasure having you here, and it was so much. I love your joy. It is amazing. Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll talk soon.
Yes, see you. Bye-bye.
Bye.